There are 55 cold cases posted on the website Project Cold Case in Rhode Island alone. Despite the website name, the organization is not an investigating agency or a television show. They post photos and stories of unsolved crimes so the victims and cases are not forgotten and offer insight to families and law enforcement. Hello, my name is Heather Jolly, and there's two of these cold cases I would like to inform you about today. One is Diane Drake, known by WPRI's cold case cards as the Queen of Clubs, pictured to the left. And the other, Michelle Norris, also known as the Queen of Diamonds, pictured to the right. Before I go into detail about their stories, I would like to explain how an investigation eventually goes cold or unsolved. First, there's a lack of personnel. There's not enough detectives or investigators to stay on a case that seems to be going nowhere. Many police departments across the United States are low on funds, which causes the investigation to slowly come to an end and remain unsolved. The absence of evidence is a huge downfall to any case. When you lack evidence, you have a severely reduced suspect list, and without a suspect list, how are you able to find the attacker? Lastly, the lack of technology. About 35% of the cases posted on the Project Cold Case website happened before 1990, at least in Rhode Island. Surveillance cameras were not something you would see on every building, street, or intersection. On to the Queen's cases. Though Diane Drake and Michelle Norris were both found beaten and nude, the cases differ in their way of life, where they were found and what they were doing before the disappearing, along with the number of possible suspects. Diane Drake, pictured here, was just under 20 years old when she went missing. She was studying criminal justice at Roger Williams University while living with her close friend Elaine Gallo, pictured to the right. They spent most of their time together, working at the photo patio and commuting to school. According to one article in The Quill, a Roger Williams University student publication, Elaine stated, "Diane and I were tight. We talked about everything." Drake's sister Terry, pictured bottom right, stated in another article of the same publication that they would go to the beach and do big sister, little sister things. Terry considered Diane her best friend and loved her sister more than anything. Unfortunately, the backstory of 70-year-old Michelle Norris, pictured here, is not as delightful as Diane's. Michelle's parents were already divorced due to her father's drinking. William Norris, pictured below, lived just a few streets down from his daughter in Central Falls. Norris grew up in poverty. An article in the Boston Globe described how Michelle was sometimes found dirty and hungry. Her and her three brothers would have to rummage through the refrigerator for food their mother had left. Later, in the same article, Julia Norris, Michelle's mother, pictured bottom right, is quoted, "It got that bad because I was very sick. I was struggling. I couldn't get out of bed." Another way the cases differ was the evidence leading up to the crime, as well as the crime scene. It was raining on the afternoon of March 21st, 1980. After calling some friends, Diane was unable to find a ride to work, so she decided to walk. The Newport Daily News wrote Diane Drake was wearing a tannish gray man's raincoat that reached below her knees, blue jeans, and hiking boots. I have pictured to the right a raincoat from the 1980s matching the description. Sadly, Diane never made it to work. Instead, her lifeless body was found on Easton's Beach in Newport the next day. Though her body was lacking any clothing, there was no evidence of sexual assault. Police believe she was restrained while being beaten due to ligature marks on her arms and legs. The picture to the right is not Diane, but a visual of what ligature marks could possibly look like. Law enforcement concluded that Drake did not fight her attackers because her palms were smooth. According to the article by Gail Gerther, the state medical examiner's office believed Diane was strangled well into the night of her disappearance. In the same article, Gail states the police believed most of the witnesses that thought they had saw Diane were mistaken and only saw a woman resembling Miss Drake. Little Michelle Norris, on the other hand, was playing at G. Harold Hunt School playground with her brothers and cousins. Some of her siblings decided to grab some candy at a corner store down the road. Michelle stayed at the playground with a cousin and brother, but when the group returned from the store, Norris was missing. Rachel Trost wrote in an article for NBC News that none of the other children had heard Michelle scream or saw anything suspicious. Norris was found 2 days later on Memorial Day. Her body, void of all clothing, was found in the woods, no more than half a mile away from where she went missing. In the episode Little Girl Lost, an examiner stated that the bruises on Michelle's body were most likely defensive bruises, meaning that she tried to fight back against the assailant. Yes, someone took advantage of this little girl and raped her. The examiner also stated that there was sand in Norris's mouth, lungs, and esophagus, which means that she was alive for most of the assault and eventually expired from suffocation. Moving on to the suspect list and evidence of the unsolved cases, Newport Police Captain William E. Janes was able to narrow the list of Diane's attackers to 3 possible suspects. The investigative team from the Quill wrote that all 3 men were released after questioning, even when one did not have an alibi for his whereabouts and suffered from an emotional disorder. Back in 1980, there was a strong naval presence in Newport, which had law enforcement under the impression that the assailant was a member of the Navy. Drake's clothing was never found, so any evidence that may have been left behind will never emerge. Diane perished from blunt force trauma and strangulation, but there were no fingerprints on her body. As for the case of Michelle Norris, everyone was a suspect. They lived in a close-knit community which gave the people the false sense of security. The Norris family, authorities, and Detective Jeff Arahu all believed Michelle knew her killer. William Norris was investigated, though her mother did not believe he had anything to do with the disappearance and murder of their only daughter. In the Breaking Homicide episode, Little Girl Lost, Police Sergeant Derek Lavoisier and forensic psychologist Chris Mohandi dive into the mysterious case with fresh eyes and determination. They go over a letter William wrote to authorities about the day of his daughter's disappearance. He says that he did pick her up from the playground, but later brought her home, where she was looking at a girl and a man who he did not know across the street. William never saw his daughter walk into the house that afternoon, and he's the last known person to see her alive. When the search party found Michelle, her clothes were folded neatly in a pile next to her bare body. Unfortunately, no evidence was publicly released, if found at all. Examiners state she passed from suffocation. In this first video clip, I would like to show you is from WPRI's website about the Diane Drake murder case. Immediately following will be a video clip from the Today Show about the unsolved Michelle Norris case.
The 19-year-old was heading to work at a photo mat on East Main Road in Middletown, possibly hitchhiking on the cold, rainy March afternoon, when she vanished. A day later, the tragic news.
A white female between the ages of 18 and 20 was found dead on the city beach about 10 this morning.
Newport police are having an especially difficult time with this case because they don't have a scene of the crime and the evidence that sometimes provides.
We are looking for anyone who may have seen Diane walking in the area of Quidnick Avenue, Valley Road area.
But despite leads and suspects, the case went cold.
7-year-old Michelle Norris from Central Falls, Rhode Island, was described as intelligent, shy, and a true mama's girl. On May 28, 1988, Michelle, her brothers and cousins went to a nearby park to play. Michelle went missing.
Before her disappearance, I was at my mom's house because I was sick, and Michelle came in the house, and she goes, "Mom, can I get you some Tylenol?" And I'm saying, "No, Mom's all set." And she says, "Okay," and she gave me a kiss, and she said, "I love you, Mom," and that was the last time I saw my daughter.
2 days after Michelle vanished, her bruised body was discovered in a desolate, wooded area, less than a half-mile from the park where she disappeared. There were reports that her clothes were folded next to her, and she had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled.
I always look forward to her growing up and doing mother-daughter things with me.
Aside from both bodies being found exposed and beaten, there's quite a difference in the two cases, ranging from their backstory to where and how they went missing and the suspects involved. Walking down a road on a rainy day and found dead the next morning without any specific suspects, Diane Drake's case remains an enigma. Michelle Norris was playing in plain sight before being abducted and murdered close to her home. The case still a mystery. Losing a loved one is difficult enough, but not knowing who killed them must be absolutely agonizing.